Hey everyone, it's Willow, and in today's episode of OutCenter's No Silly Questions, we are going to be addressing something that might be a little uncomfortable, but it's important for us to talk about. We are going to be asking and answering this question: what is an ally? Like I said, No Silly Questions is all about LGBTQ FAQs and fast facts. There are no silly questions, so ask your own at outcenter.org/questions. All right then, let's talk about allyship. And let me be clear from the start. Being an ally is not about collecting social justice points or showing progressive friends how enlightened you are. It's not about posting a rainbow flag during Pride Month and saying love is love and calling it a day. Actually, being an ally is a sacrificial calling. It's about being willing to put something real on the line for your community. Frankly, if you're not prepared to do that, you may not be prepared enough to call yourself an ally. Let's first start by talking about what allyship is not. First, allyship is not performative. Performative allyship is when people focus more on appearing to be allies rather than actually being allies. These are surface-level gestures that make the ally feel good about themselves while not actually doing good for the community. And we see this everywhere. Remember when most corporations were slapping a rainbow overlay on their logos and saying, yes, we support LGBT rights, all the while donating to anti-LGBT politicians. And now look at this year, they have thoroughly dumped the guise of having any support for the community. And it's not just major corporations who are playing a game of politics. It's also everyday individuals. Somebody who, like I said, might be willing to post a rainbow flag during Pride Month, but is unwilling to say anything at all, not even a simple challenge, when a coworker says something discriminatory or biased or bigoted about an LGBT coworker. That same performative rainbow washing allyship is when somebody talks about caring for LGBT people, but says nothing when a homophobic joke is dropped in their friend group. Look, you don't need to tell people that you're an ally. You need to show that you're an ally. Let other people call you an ally and don't just claim that name for yourself. Now, let's talk about what being an ally is all about. I think we could summarize this with 3 phrases. 1, being accepting, having humility, and 3, taking action. To be accepting is to do more than just have a mere tolerance for people different than you. Look, it might not be your experience to understand trans issues or to be bisexual or to use they, them pronouns or things like that. But to be an ally is about doing more than just simply saying, okay, well, I'm not going to persecute those people, right? It's about actually having an acceptance, perhaps even a curiosity even, for people who have a different experience than you. Just because you don't understand something doesn't make that person's experience invalid. To have humility is about listening. So much of performative allyship is about putting one's self out there, taking the limelight, putting the attention on one's self. And maybe, heaven forbid, in some cases, having humility includes taking correction from an LGBT person who might be able to help you understand something a little bit better if you have curiosity and humility. Being an ally isn't about taking all these leadership roles for yourself. That's inappropriate. Finally, taking action is a big part of being an ally. Again, being an ally, not just claiming a label. Taking action is not just about good intentions, not just about kind words. It's about doing something. Real allyship might look like a teacher fighting hard so that kids can have books in their school library to learn about different identities. Real allyship might look like saying something strongly worded during a meeting with other colleagues, when somebody's saying something that is not right or unkind or even discriminatory towards queer colleagues. Real allyship, and I've seen this happen before, is when a parent moves to a totally different state to ensure that their trans kid has medical attention and safety, even if that comes at great financial risk or is a move that isn't going to help their career. But they're willing to do that for the sake of their queer kid. What do all of these examples have in common? Well, sacrifice. These allies put their jobs, their comfort, their relationships, and their resources on the line. They understood that allyship isn't just about having the right opinions. It's about potentially having to pay a price for holding on to those beliefs. They understood that allyship is not just about having the right opinions, but it's about doing the right thing. Here's what I need you to understand. If you want to call yourself an ally, then you have to accept the moral obligation that comes with that title. True allyship, this revived kind of allyship, is driven by virtues like courage and compassion and justice. People driven by virtue don't do things or don't act because it's convenient or because it makes them look good. Rather, they act because they believe it's the right thing to do regardless of the cost. Think about the wider civil rights movement here in the United States. The white allies who made a difference weren't the ones who quietly supported civil rights marches in the comfort of their own homes. And it certainly weren't the white moderates that thought that Black and African American people were taking things too far. No, the helpful allies, the revived allies, the useful allies were the ones who were taking to the streets themselves, facing down fire hoses and police dogs, who risked their reputations and sometimes even their lives. So let me be clear. I'm not asking you to die for our cause, but I am asking you to live your life in such a way that claiming the term ally is not a contradiction or hypocritical. Like I said, this matters. Here in 2025, there are almost 600 different anti-LGBT bills across multiple states' legislatures. That's a lot. Many of them directly target trans youth, book bannings, restricted healthcare, and seek to roll back decades of progress. And right here in Michigan, LGBT students are being bullied at rates that would shock you. Guess what? Nearly half of LGBT workers experience discrimination or harassment at work at much higher rates than the general population. And in rural areas like much of Southwest Michigan, isolation and a lack of resources make things so much worse. So when we talk about allyship, we're not just talking about abstract principles. We're talking about actual people and their lives in our shared community. So, if you are serious about being an ally, here's what we need from you. First, educate yourself. Don't put the burden on LGBT people to educate and teach you. Go take an active role. Read books, watch YouTube videos, attend workshops, show up in all the different ways where you can better yourselves in this fight for civil rights. Second, use your voice. If you're coming from a position of privilege, you have a lot less to lose than an LGBT person. So when you hear that homophobic or transphobic comment, you be the first one to not let it slide. If you see discrimination happening, speak up. When policies are being debated that affect our community on school boards and city commissions, make your voice heard. Take one evening out of your month to attend those commission meetings and do what you can to let it be known that LGBT people are safe with you. Third, use your resources. Yes, I mean that. I mean, give money to LGBT people. Help them survive. Healthcare is expensive. HRT is expensive. Organizations like OutCenter can't do this for free. And we are working very, very hard to keep people's rights and to fight for greater ones. And that is not free. But it's not just about that. It's also about maybe using your professional network to help an LGBT person who has lost their job for discriminatory reasons. It might mean going out and voting for candidates who support LGBT rights. It might mean running for city commission yourself. But really, that sacrifice of time or even money is a part of what it means to be an ally. Lastly, and I've kind of already said this, but show up, right? Don't just post online. Make a difference in person if you can. And if you can't come out and show up in person, guess what? There are things you can do from home or things that you can do from over the phone. There's always support that can be had if we're willing to be creative and step out of our comfort zones to show actual material support for our community. Well, there's really one last thing though. Be prepared for discomfort. Real allyship is not easy. You'll make mistakes, we all do. You'll face criticism, we all do. You might lose friends or face professional consequences, but that is the price for doing the right thing. Here's the truth that so many people don't want to hear. You can't be neutral on this issue. LGBT people are being targeted, attacked. Rights are being rolled back. Neutrality is not an option. Either you support social justice or you detract from it by not being, at the very least, a barrier from unchecked power rolling over queer people. You have a choice to make. You can, post that rainbow flag on Facebook and sit in silence when you hear homophobic jokes. But really, stop calling yourself an ally if that's the level of moral support you're willing to give. Option 2, you're not silent when it matters. You stand up for the community. You're willing to do something. You decide that some things are worth fighting for, even if it's uncomfortable. You can decide that your comfort is less important than fighting for others' safety. And the reality is, it's only fair. LGBT people have been fighting a cultural proxy war for cisgender and straight people. LGBT people have looked at a whole ecology of issues, from women's rights to reproductive rights, and have often been on the activist front line. Guess what, though? We need allies as we continue this, and not just for ourselves, but for you too. So while we demand for basic human dignity, and while we make sacrifices, we invite you to join us on that journey. Like, I know that this is a heavier topic, and it's making a big demand, really. It's about moral obligations and ethics and these big existential things. There is an easy way out, right? The easy way out is to simply not be an ally. But if you want to claim that title, you have to be brave. Now is the time. All right, very lastly, if you are learning from this content, it would mean the world if you shared it with your friends on social media, if you left us a comment, if you engaged with this video in some way. Lastly, if you want us to keep this work going, head over to outcenter.org/donate and support our work there.